Welcome to Capture the Reps podcast, the podcast for fitness creatives by fitness creatives. Each episode, we will dive into techniques, strategies, and behind-the-scenes stories to help fast-track your career. Whether you're behind the camera or in front of it, this is the space to grow, create, and connect. Hit it, Sam. Jake Schaeffer.
Hey.
What's up, man?
How's it going?
Welcome to Capture the Reps podcast.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. We got Chris over here in the corner. Hey, Chris.
What's up, guys?
Hey.
Just three guys
Just three guys just talking shop, right?
capturing the reps.
That's it.
Capturing the reps.
That's all we're trying to do here. As we continue to redefine our looks, I switch sides, which might throw people off. Let me know if this is my better side. Jake insisted on being on that side.
I did.
And as a mentee, I let him take control of that. So
He has two good sides, just to be clear, though.
he does.
Two.
But yeah, today we're going to talk about everything equipment-wise for our fellow fitness creatives here. So everything on the video side and some stuff on the photo side as well.
Yeah.
Jake is a seasoned pro when it comes to this. How long have you been doing this? For your entire life?
Almost a third of it.
Crazy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Jake is the guy that if you guys have like a panic call to whenever you're using something in the field, Jake is usually my call that I make. So figured he would be able to provide us some good info today.
That's why I always answer, because that's the only time you'll
It's
call.
weird how it's always on the first ring too. I don't know why you're so excited, but
Is it quick? Yeah. Usually it's quick because I'm like something.
do I have a special ringtone or something?
No, but you have a special face. When
Oh, my face comes up.
Yeah.
It's real
Great.
special.
And it,
Great.
yeah.
It's really special.
I got to stop everything I'm doing. Make sure you're okay.
Fair enough. And today we want to focus on what kind of equipment you want to purchase once you get past that stage. So like that first initial push into, let's say, like intermediate level. And I know you came with some really good thoughts on it, equipment ideas and all that kind of stuff. So before we dive into like specifics of like what you should actually acquire once you reach that level of videographer or photographer, what are like the overarching themes? Like now, at what point do you know it's time to invest and upgrade your equipment?
It's a good question.
Thank you.
Most important thing to understand is it doesn't matter what camera that you have, what set of lenses that you have. If you have that, you can create. You can revolve the story around enough to where the equipment will fit in. Because that's, in my belief, I think in most people's belief, is the story comes first, equipment comes later, comes second.
So like no matter what you're using, what tools you're utilizing, we should first focus on all of the structure, pre-planning, and all of those individual details that go into actually getting to filming day. And then once filming day comes in, that's when the equipment comes in. But if you don't have a solid base, you're kind of kicking yourself in the leg. Does that make sense, Chris?
Kicking
yourself
We're
in
just
the
going
leg.
to move on. I do just like the fact that in a previous episode, it feels like somebody as experienced as Jake is echoing a similar sentiment, and that's just create.
Yep.
Like
I agree with that.
just start making.
Yeah. I feel like it also determines on who you're creating for. So if you start to get a list of clients or people where they're like, hey, I want it to look this specific way, then equipment is going to become more important, because if you don't have those tools to capture something in that way, then you can't do the job. And then you'll have an unhappy client that's paying you to do that work.
So really it's like, when you've reached that intermediate level, whenever you have the clients that are asking for things that are outside what you were previously doing as far as your scope of work, would it be fair to like say like that? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm sure people have experienced this where a client is like, hey, can I get an aerial shot? Can you get a drone shot of this? And if you don't have a drone, then you have to go purchase one. And so that's when equipment's going to become important. Or if you want to try to tell the client, oh, we don't need it, but that will be, again, an unhappy client.
Yeah, no doubt. No, and it's important too. Like, I've made the mistake that one of the biggest mistakes I made like very early on in my career was I was starting out, and I think we all fall into the trap of like keeping up with the Joneses and all that kind of stuff, where you watch a YouTube clip and you're like, wow, like I need that so I can do that shot. Meanwhile, you don't realize like it's also a very skilled person on the other end that's creating that shot, and then the tool is just using to enhance what they already have skill wise.
True.
You know, instead of you being like, oh, if I get that, I'm easily going to be able to accomplish that. Like, that's not the case.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's YouTube videos where a beginner has a $50,000 camera setup versus an experienced filmmaker or photographer who's got a $1,000 setup. And most of the time, that well-known photographer, better photographer, videographer, does a better job with a cheaper setup. It comes with experience.
Yeah. And to kind of take a step forward then, you know, with all those considerations in mind, I would definitely say, you know, make sure you have a client that will support all of these purchases, and then that will dictate what you purchase. So when you do make that decision of what to purchase, is there a place that you start, like a most important first item? Let's keep it like general, like you just signed on with a client, you're doing a commercial at a gym, right? Let's give that scenario, because I think that scenario will apply to the most people that will be listening to this.
Yeah. Most of us watch YouTube videos, and usually we'll watch videos around filmmakers and photographers already. And so most of the time they're going to suggest certain pieces of equipment. So I can guarantee that if you're starting out, you probably have a Amazon wish list, B&H wish list of certain items that you've seen being used that you would probably want to purchase, or you're waiting to purchase, probably waiting for that client deal or that project that gets booked. And so that's
So
probably...
be proactive with it. Like, don't wait as far, you might wait as far as purchasing goes, but like as you go through and you start getting more experience, like put aside things that either you've come across or that you know that would enhance your work, that you're just not in the position right now to financially make that leap.
Exactly. Yeah, that's usually how I do it. Is I'll have something saved that I want to purchase, and I don't want to just pay for it and then just wait for the next project. Usually when the project comes, I'll say, okay, is this worth getting, and will I use this on this project and potentially more projects like it? And then how much work will I get out of that project, and how much will I benefit with this set item for this project specifically?
Do you have like a set formula or like way that you calculate that out at all?
If the project's big enough and I'm covering all expenses on my end, and then I have extra, then I'll make a purchase.
Okay.
For example, this past month I've had more photography gigs than I ever have, and so I asked myself, how much more would I benefit from getting this certain lens? Would I benefit more from having this?
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, okay, I'll go ahead and purchase this because I know that these projects are going to pay for it plus. And so I did. And I'm super happy that I did. I've done that at least for the past 3 lenses that I bought. I'll have a big list of certain projects that come up. Then I'll say, okay, I'll purchase this knowing that it's going to pay off from this project or list of projects. And I go with that in mind, usually with all my equipment.
No, that's a really good point. I love how you structure everything out to where you're thinking about those critical questions, you know, and making sure that you're answering those questions before you go ahead and make that purchase, which is great. As far as looking at, is there any like ancillary or different considerations that you should also have as far as like the equipment itself? So when I ask that question, like, do you consider travel versus not? Do you like, how do you go about making all of those decisions, and like what factors into that?
It's a lot of things. I mean, most companies know who their audience is. They know us as photographers and filmmakers, and they know that it could be a list of certain things of the reasons why we would purchase their equipment. And they're really good at it because all of us have probably purchased equipment in the past week or two just because we knew that it would benefit us.
It's all those Instagram ads.
Yeah, that too.
They're killing me.
Prime Day.
Prime Day too is happening
it's
right
Prime
now.
Day.
Yeah.
That's true. When I traveled out to film Sarah Sigmund's Daughter out in Iceland, at that time, DJI had released the Phantom 4 Pro Obsidian color.
This is a drone he's talking about.
Yeah. It shot 4K 60, and it was in that moment where I was like, okay, I booked this gig. Should I purchase this item to help with the project? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, maybe I could use it for more projects. And as I was looking into the horizon for the upcoming projects, I knew that I could use it for every single project after that. It was like 5 or 6 projects after that. So I purchased it, and I couldn't have been happier because I was able to capture amazing shots of Iceland, which is beautiful. It was super cold out there, and it was a little bit murky in certain areas. But I mean, it just upped the quality of the content that I was going to be producing for my client at the time. And it made me look that much better, which I then booked more gigs with that said client throughout that year because I kept on upping my game. And I mean, it was in my mind, it was a rational decision. It cost money for me to purchase that on my end, and then the gigs paid for it.
I love that. That's how you use your funds effectively.
A Sony 70-200 lens. I think it's like a $2,500 lens. Same thing. I had a bunch of photo gigs that came up for that month, and I was like, how much better would it be for me to shoot with the 70-200 versus at the time I had a 24-70 lens, which you can't punch in that much. I mean, it's pretty wide. You don't get very good close-ups, and it was a lot of candid photography. And as you know, we're stepping away from the CrossFit-oriented stuff, but it was 4 events, and I knew that I could be more of like a fly on the wall during said event.
Yeah.
Which, same thing if you're at a CrossFit event. Like, you might be in the audience area.
Right.
And you might not be able to get close up enough.
Right.
Can't capture as good. And so I purchased it. Best decision I ever made at that time, just because, again, I was able to capture something better, make things look better on my end, up my quality, and proof of work.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about the fly on the wall thing too. Just touch on that. I memean, that's something that I've noticed shooting events. Like, people, even in the middle of a workout, if you come up with a 24-70, people will change. Like they will, like, it will almost uncandid itself. Whereas if you're shooting with something like that, like you're shooting with a longer distance lens and they have no idea that they're being photographed or videoed.
Yeah. You just got the Sony 100-400 lens. I mean, you've used it. You finally purchased it.
I wish the guy I purchased it from took a lot better care of it. Just kidding, Jake. No, I mean, the whole purchase behind that, it goes back to what me and Chris talked about way back when, when we were debriefing the idea of the competition of NorCal Classic, is if I didn't rent that lens from you, there were certain points in time where they're in a big open field, and Chris can speak to this too. It's like, if you had someone that was way down in a lane, like way down the other side, like, it's very hard to shoot and film across people. Same thing with photos, take photos across from people. And again, like you were mentioning, if I have a 24-70, yeah, I can zoom in, but it's going to not look great. So that 100-400 was amazing because I could sit there and just, capture little moments here and there. And it felt as though I was up close and to them when really I was on completely other side of the field, and it also adds for a nice little effect there. But yeah, and because I had that experience, I was like, okay, if this comes up again, now that I have this lens, I am prepared for that moment. Financially, it makes sense because I'm already traveling to these events. I'm expected to come out with a bunch of deliverables. So I was able to justify that because coming up, I have the CrossFit Games, the CrossFit Masters Games, World Fitness Project, and Desert City. So knowing that I have all of those, if I just use that lens for 2 or 3 of those, I'm perfect. And it might even be less than that and I'll still be perfect. But that's why I was able to justify that purchase.
Absolutely. And you did bring up a good point too. That
I tend to do that
I
on
didn't
this
even
podcast.
talk about renting. That's something that you can always do before making a purchase into certain equipment. There's plenty of companies that rent gear out, and it's usually the new gear, whether if it's a camera body or a lens or a light. That's probably the best thing that you can do. And I know a lot of people that only rent. They don't own much of any equipment. They rent all of their gear and they just add it into the invoice of the project.
So what are the other advantages to renting? Just to hit on that a little bit more. So the first advantage to renting is you can try out gear before you actually make the full purchase. The second thing would be that you're able to not have like the overhead of like having and owning and that initial cost. There's some cost savings there, at least, you know, for if you rent a certain amount of times. What are like some other considerations?
How often that you're going to use that equipment that you rent. If you're going to use it maybe 4 to 7 times in the year, then you should probably continue renting it. If you're going to use it 3 to 5 times a week, then purchasing it is no-brainer.
Yep. So real life example of that, we have these cameras right here. These cameras are literally used, I wouldn't say every day, probably every other day, but 3 to 4 times a week easily. However, there's stuff in this room right now that, to your point, I probably should have rented, that I bought way back when thinking, oh, I'm going to use it all the time, and I never use it. Like the one thing would be like a slider. So I have this slider that I typically rent out because I myself don't use it that often because it's bulky, it's big, and all that kind of stuff. But way back when, I watched a YouTube video about how cool this slider was and how great of an image it makes. But me myself, it's not conducive to my workflow. So I mean, that's a real life example. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I purchased a slider before too, and I even though that the budget wouldn't fit to bring the slider in for a certain project, I still would bring it because it just upped the quality. But speaking of sliders, they're bulky, hard to travel with, not very collapsible. It's just something that you have to add in to bring, and then the time is set up too.
So we covered buying versus renting and all the financial aspects of things. And you just alluded to it. I want to dig a little bit deeper on that. So what are some other considerations for equipment?
Probably the time of setup. That's a big deal. Once you're more well seasoned into filmmaking, there's certain camera bodies that take 8 to 12 seconds to turn on, and that in itself could cause you to miss a shot. And so mostly Sony and Canon cameras, most of them do a really good job at even just a startup of the camera itself.
Yeah,
that's
Sony's slightly better, but yeah.
Just
I always like to make sure everything fits in like a carry-on or, if I have to, a checked bag. And there's certain times where I'll choose the less expensive tripod or the less expensive option that I know travels better and that maybe is a little bit more rugged. I could, kind of not treat it as nicely, right? If it gets tossed around during checked bags and all that kind of stuff. So like when I look, a good example would be a tripod. So like right now, Chris has a tripod on him that is really my travel tripod. This thing has been through the ringer. But off to the right here, we have a Shackler, which is a very expensive tripod that I use strictly for more of like sit-down interviews, controlled setting, and I don't carry that around with me very often. That stays like in the car to like local places here in Arizona. I don't like put that in a checked bag or anything like that because it's more valuable. So like considerations like that are important.
Yeah. And then also, you yourself are your own tripod. which we all know that you like to go handheld very often.
Handheld all day, which
will
is like a future episode. I think we need to hit on handheld
Later
because that is like. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, I get too excited about handheld.
Yeah, collapsible. How easy it is to travel with. Those all factor in. Like even your backpack. Like most of us will have a backpack where the front will completely open up, where you can just quickly grab something.
That's a good point.
I mean, even just traveling with like a roller case, like a Pelican case, sometimes it's not necessary enough, or it just wastes too much time, and then you have to set that somewhere. You can't put it on your back, and so you probably wouldn't want to bring it to certain events or certain productions because of that, just depending on how much that you're going to move around.
Yes, so you really got to do a lot of pre-planning, and you got to look at what you're actually doing and evaluate, does this piece of equipment actually serve the purpose that I want it to? So, for instance, Chris can speak to this. Chris was carrying around like a big bag at NorCal.
Huge bag.
So, obviously, you made that decision instead of like having like a Pelican case that you were like rolling in and rolling out to all these events and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I just wanted something that I could keep with me at all times, because I think in that environment we were shooting without a lot of, I would say, without a true safe space to keep our stuff. So I was trying to make sure that I had everything for the gig, as well as always had it on me, because obviously usually when we're working with what we work with, it's quite expensive, and it would be pretty detrimental to your gig if somebody were to walk away with something. So yeah, I was hauling around a big old bag, but it worked.
Yeah. So let's dive in specifically to items now. So items that you would need in a gym setting in order to create content for that gym setting. And I think that gym setting is going to be very similar to a competition setting. So I would say like kind of those two under one umbrella, like what you would actually need. And then after that, I want to focus on more of like the sit down commercials for brands and more like structured, in our world, like the corporate-y type stuff as well. But let's first start with competitions.
In a competition setting, I would say one of the most important things is being mobile. Usually you're not going to have a light with you.
Right.
You're not going to have a light attached to
Right.
your camera. So unless if that competition setting is already well lit,
Right.
you have to work within that environment to navigate. And so specifically, you would have a camera, probably something like a 24-70, and then on standby, a 70-200 or 100 to 400 millimeter lens. And when I say those numbers, it's millimeters. You want to probably have a camera cage on your camera just to maybe add a little bit more weight, or where you can have attachments on there.
And talk why that's important to add more weight to your camera.
Because if you have a lighter camera, you're going to see all of the little jitters that wouldn't look very good on a screen. It's usually when you can tell the difference between an amateur versus a well-seasoned capturer. This is mainly coming towards a video perspective. But the more weight that you add on, the less weird shakiness that you're going to get in the camera itself. And so it's tougher because it's going to weigh more, it'll be more difficult to navigate with, but it's going to make those shots look just a little bit more smooth and cinematic, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And I would say, I think we should definitely, another podcast idea. I keep coming up with ideas while I'm sitting here. Another one would be like the techniques of like that idea of what you can use around you in order to create a stable environment. There's a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
But the other thing you hit on was lenses. So this, I think, all depends on the access that you have. Typically, in the fitness realm, if you have good access, meaning you have a press pass, a media pass, whatever, you can usually get away with that 24-70.
Yeah.
However, if you do not have access and you're a little bit further away, that's when that 70-200 becomes your king. And when you have more in the budget, then you can introduce like the 100-400 and you can really be really far away and get that good visual. But I think those are like the 3 stages. I say if you, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would say if you are strictly doing a competition, 70 to 200 is probably your best bet. If you're more in a gym setting, that's when you can do the 24 to 70. Yeah. Would you say that's like pretty good rule?
I agree. And I'll always tell people, like, I think I've told you this before, it all comes with experience and really being honest with yourself, reviewing how you captured something, getting feedback from others, and seeing how you can make it better. That's probably more important than me telling any of you that this is what you need to get, this is what you should buy. It's actually going out there and doing those things so then you can learn from either mistakes or the successes.
And something we hit on before was the idea of like watching what other people are doing and the lens selections they're doing whenever they're filming and all that stuff around you that are trying to accomplish a similar thing than you are. Like, okay, like if I see someone on a certain lens, like before, like let's say I'm arriving to a gym and there's already somebody there, like maybe they're filming an athlete, maybe they're filming some type of competition, whatever. If they're on a certain lens, I'm gonna be like, oh, I should probably start on that lens because they've already done the groundwork to get to a certain point to decide that is the lens that they want to use.
Yeah. Any event that I go to, if I have the time, I will always talk to any other person that's there that's capturing. I'll ask them, what made you choose Canon or Sony? What made you choose that lens? How do you enjoy that? Is it worth buying? These are all questions that I'll just ask just because I usually will introduce myself to most people that are doing the same thing as me at either a competition or at an event. And you learn so much from that simply just because of that. I mean, even if I already knew the answers to that, getting insight from somebody else is always helpful. It's always beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're ignoring lighting for now in this environment. We're grabbing our lens. We're grabbing some type of weight to our actual camera body. Again, this is assuming that you already have a camera body. If you don't have a camera body, I would assume that would probably be your first purchase, right? So, if, and kind of go from there. There's a bunch of cameras for every budget. You can make your own decision there. But we're talking strictly about the stuff that comes after the camera body. Next, I'm assuming you go audio.
Yeah.
And I think, again, you'll agree with me here is like, there's great options that are $100, and there's absolutely amazing options that are thousands of dollars.
Yeah. It all depends on where you're going to connect the microphone as well. Most of these camera companies, again, they're smart. They know who's going to be using these cameras. So there's always going to be a piece of equipment that they're going to be selling. So like Sony, for example, they have a ton of different on-camera mics, shotgun mics that you can attach to your actual Sony camera on the hot shoe mount, and it'll provide way better audio than what the internal mic will have on the camera.
Yeah, I would always try to avoid the internal unless you don't have that budget to be able to do that. That's why we kind of put it a little bit lower on the list, is because like really your visuals are going to what matter most in the fitness world. And then, you kind of introduce other things. But yeah, I mean, I used to rock an on-camera, shotgun mic that was like $100 for like years,
Yeah.
And now we have these fancy microphones that we talk into for podcasting, It's crazy.
It's always changing.
Yeah.
There's always new things that are coming out that will benefit us.
Would you say there's anything else on the essentials list before we dive into like getting a little bit crazy?
Probably batteries, I would say.
Extra batteries. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. That's always important.
Extra batteries, extra SD cards.
Yeah. SD cards. Because you never want a moment in time where you run out of something like that, because you can still capture things if you don't have, let's say, a microphone, but you can't if you don't have an extra battery or SD card.
Yep.
Those are, most people probably know that at this point, but buy one additional just in case.
And I would highly, highly suggest not to buy the cheap knockoff versions of a battery on Amazon, B&H, whatever site you use, because you're going to end up having to buy them every single like year, basically. It's like almost
Yeah.
like, so I know batteries can be expensive. I would save up and get the brand name right battery. And that's probably the only time you're going to hear me say that as far as like brand name stuff. Don't skimp out on batteries.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of brands on Amazon that are 10% of the price of what the said brand sells in batteries. But those things can always...
They stop recharging. They're slow. They break easily, like all that stuff.
I've heard stories where they actually broke the camera itself because of certain voltage issues with the battery. So definitely don't do that. Don't skimp out on SD cards as well. Just get something that's going to be a little bit more expensive.
Because what you're paying for there is efficiency with SD cards.
Yep.
SD cards, if you go the more expensive route on the SD card, typically, that also means it's faster. If you're at a competition, you're at a gym, and you want something to quickly upload, directly to your hard drive or whatever you're utilizing, that time is invaluable. If you have a slow SD card, you're going to sit there and just not be able to do anything for hours.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is a lesson I learned very early on, because I distinctly remember being at the CrossFit Games in 2021, and it would literally take like an hour plus to get the footage off my SD card onto my computer.
Yep.
And then I would have to make a proxy file. This is before I had like a high-powered computer, which again, use what you have. But all these decisions that you make to upgrade your equipment financially is always going to benefit you on the time side and all of that. So
100%. And it comes by experience.
Yes.
If that didn't happen, then you probably would have said, you know what, this is okay.
Right.
This will work.
Right.
But because of that, you made the purchase to a better item.
Let's say now you got a little bit more extra in the budget. You've already gotten your brand name batteries, your SD card. Let's say you pick the 24-70. You have your camera body. You have your on-camera microphone, shotgun mic. Mm-hmm. I think you know where I'm going to go.
I know where you're going to go.
So I think I started using a monitor in 2022 or 2023. It's been a game changer, because a lot of the times you think that your shot is in focus and you got it and your composition looks great, but you're on those small little LCD screens that are on the camera. The lighting isn't accurate. Everything's smushed in, and you're paying all this money to fly out there, or maybe all this money to drive to the gym, dedicate your time, effort, and then you go back in editing and you're like, I can't believe I thought that was good at the time. So if you do have that, I would highly suggest it. There are very affordable options. There are options that are scary, to say the least. So with that, pick one that's within your budget. But I would highly suggest a monitor if you have the ability to do that financially. I would say it's not a necessary thing. There's plenty of people that can do it without it, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I think it's just better to see what you're capturing on a bigger screen as well. That for whatever reason, it just it helps. Like, it just helps you understand a little bit more on what you're capturing itself. And the little screens, they can only do so much.
Right.
And if you're for a photographer, you can use the viewfinder, which most viewfinders are great in the camera itself, so you don't have to worry so much about a monitor. But for video, it's important. And again, it adds more weight to the camera itself.
Yes.
Which then
That's a good point.
Won't give so much jitters.
Mm-hmm.
I'll also say a filter on your camera lens is something that's probably, when you're getting a monitor, you're probably going to want to get a filter as well.
I would say you'd probably get the filter before the monitor, yeah?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like we're doing like a buying guide, like a checklist. Like
Yeah. A variable ND filter, or even just an ND filter in itself, because if you're at a competition or at an event that goes from outdoors to indoors or the opposite, ND filter is like, you have to have one.
Yes.
Especially if you want to capture things correctly.
Yes. Yeah, like NorCal again. I hate to keep bringing it up, but it's the one that's, it's the competition that just happened. We're about to hit a bunch of competitions, but that's the one that's fresh in my mind. And with that, if I didn't have an ND filter, much like the 100 to 400, I would have been out of luck. Like everything would have been overexposed, overblown. Some shots still were overexposed. And there's ways to cheat it, like on the camera if you up the shutter speed and stuff like that. But then it becomes an unnatural image. So I would highly suggest that, and I would get one that has I use one that's like 2 to 4 stops, and that seems to be the best one for me. Is that kind of where you land, or you have?
Yeah, I have 2 variable ND filters, which is 1 to 5 stops and then 6 to 9 stops. Just because, like, that's even if I'm indoors, sometimes there might be a super bright area where I want to have that low f-stop, that low depth of field, and can't do that if you don't have something like an ND filter attached.
Right.
Especially if you want to capture with the right specs in mind.
Yeah.
And because that whatever for shutter speed, whatever frame rate that you're shooting at, you double, and that's what your shutter speeds should be. So if you're shooting at 24 frames, it should be 50. Shutter speed 50. 60 frames, 120 shutter speed.
I didn't know you were that good at math.
Yeah.
That's not bad, buddy.
On the fly.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. Yeah, sorry. Sarcasm. Yeah, and then I would say as far as additional items, this is where that handheld versus stabilization comes into, thought. There are certain videographers, I'll speak on the video side. There are certain videographers that will swear by having their camera on a gimbal. And in that case, maybe the gimbal for them is more important than other choices that we've laid out. For me personally, I don't use gimbals. I don't like them. I never have. But that doesn't mean it's not for you. Like, you have to make that decision yourself. There are a ton of awesome things you can do with a gimbal.
Yeah, 100%. But there's things that you also can't do with a gimbal that you could do handheld.
Right.
And so it comes at a cost. The best way that I would say to get started with gimbals, if you are getting started, if you've tried to, I would say try to use it a little more often, so then you can learn a little bit more with gimbals. And also, if you are just getting started with a gimbal, try getting a gimbal for your phone. And if you enjoy using a gimbal with
It's a really
your
good
phone,
point.
then go ahead and purchase a gimbal for your camera, just because it's a little bit cheaper. And at that point, you can learn on just how to maneuver with a gimbal, because it's very different. Like for me, when I got started for stabilization, I had a glide cam, which in my mind, when I was going from a glide cam to a gimbal, I thought, oh, it's just the same exact thing. It's stabilization. It's completely different.
Right.
Completely different maneuverability and functions, and also how you are holding the gimbal is even something that will change how you can capture stuff.
Right.
So that's my advice: is try it with the phone. If you have one and you put it away because you didn't really do well with it, take it back out. Just continue to use it, because that's the only way that you'll get experience from it, is just by using it.
And like you brought up earlier, rent one.
Yeah, you can
Rent it for a day. Try it out.
Yeah.
What about so I have a very bad story about a monopod, but what about other considerations like that? Is that something that if you're going into a gym, you're going to a competition, you would want to have something like that?
I feel like a monopod itself it's beneficial in certain ways, but I also feel like it's like stuck in between not wanting to use a tripod but not wanting to go handheld.
You're not like fully committing,
yeah. And I don't see too many people using a monopod, especially in myself. I don't usually ever use a monopod at all, unless if it's for a shot specifically where I have to get a higher angle. That would be the only time that I would actually use a monopod, which it's not that often that I have to get a super high angle. So I steer away from it.
Yeah.
Some people might want it or need it. Maybe they have a camera rig that they can't hold steady.
Right.
Maybe you have shaky hands or you just aren't stable enough. A monopod would be helpful
Yeah.
because it's mobile enough where you don't have to put 3 legs down for a tripod, and then you don't have to hold it.
Right. Like you have an athlete that's running through, like in high rocks when they're running through stations, you know, stuff like that. Obviously, there's some sacrifices you're making with the amount of fluidity of moving like side to side, up and down, and all that kind of stuff. But you have a more stable shot. And then, you know, there's other options out there, of course, but I think the other options are more like advanced, like if you do like a steady rig and like that stuff that you've used in the past that I've seen photos of, which are badass, which Sam will put in right here. Sup, Sam? Like that type of stuff is a little bit more advanced, so I don't think we need to hit on that. But
No, I don't think so.
I'm glad you agree. You've been very agreeable today. I'm waiting for you to have like a hot take against me here, but
I could have with the gimbal stuff, just because
we're gonna have a whole nother conversation about that.
We'll
I feel
talk
like,
about it
yeah, I feel like we'll talk about that later. Probably talk about it off camera. Yeah. Have a little boxing match. Okay, so that covers all of the competition, the gym side. Let's talk more about like the commercial side. So you're working with Supplement Brand X, and Supplement Brand X has this all-day shoot. You're creating content for them. Obviously, budget will dictate a lot. But what are the differences? Like, so what are you changing as far as either on the priority level, or what are you adding to that equipment list?
As far as equipment goes, I don't know if I'm changing that much. Mainly because in the, I guess, like athletic creative realm, the look of your equipment setup isn't necessarily too important. Whereas
the behind the scenes type stuff.
Yeah.
Professionalism, yeah.
Whereas if you're
That's a good point. I never thought of that.
Yeah, if you're on set with maybe a Fortune 500 company, the way your equipment looks it matters way more than you'd like.
Right.
So I would say for most of that, it's not going to change that much.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because if it's a supplement company, it's going to revolve around athletic stuff.
Yeah.
And that person who worked at the supplement company probably hired you because they saw something that you captured from said event.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters that much. But the pre-production work that goes into something like that, because you've dealt with this before, is you have a client, potential client, that wants to shoot something, and you ask them, how do you want this to look? What creative input can you provide to me? And they say, oh, just do your best. And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's a bad thing, because most of the time when they say, oh, just do what you do, they'll usually have input and say, well, I wish it would have been captured like this later on. And so what I will say is get input from the pre-production standpoint, because maybe there's something that they like or don't like that would be important to understand going into that project.
Yeah. And that's something that Holly hit on, was the idea of having that conversation. Like, she took us through a strict, like, hey, follow this. So if you haven't seen that, go take a look at that episode, because she broke it down, working with a brand. Here's the questions they're going to ask you. Here's what you need to ask them, all that kind of stuff.
I got to watch that then.
You do. You got some homework. So you thought you were going to get away with not having to do anything.
It's okay.
Yeah. I would say, if we're really trying to like search for something, I would say potentially a light would be the one thing I would add, because not, every gym's a little bit different, but typically in most gyms they have like some type of box or something like that you can utilize as a makeshift tripod. I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've thrown a box on the ground and just put my camera on the box and called it a tripod. And like, to your point, if you're not working with a Fortune 500 company, they're typically cool with that for interview style type stuff for brands. So I would say, a light, and there's plenty of different options out there, but I would also only introduce that if there isn't any natural light present. So what's really cool is at Magna, we have those big barn doors, and we can utilize that as our key light to really be able to just have like a cool interview style type thing. Or even if we know someone's going to be working out in the gym, position them in the gym right there to do their qualifier workout, whatever it is. Or if it's a branded piece of content, same type of idea. Hey, let's do this like where the lighting's cool. But I would say like a light. Other than that, now that I think about it, we really don't need like too much more. So if you do competitions, you can do brand commercials. There you go.
Yeah, I agree. You can do a lot of things.
Yeah, easy as that. Well, Jake, I think that covers it for equipment lists to include for someone who has gone from more green, learning the ropes, to someone that's more intermediate, starting to get bigger gigs, starting to get bigger jobs, working competitions, all that. And then as far as like on the advanced side, I think it's really just taking everything that we talked about today and just looking at the higher quality options, the options that we laid out, and making the best decision for yourself. But
100%.
No, appreciate the time chatting here.
Yeah, I have one more thing.
One more parting shot. All right, here we go.
One piece of advice that I do want to say that I will praise you for. When you were dipping your feet into creative stuff, was you engaged in talking with a lot more people that knew what they were doing? Went out of your way to, I guess, like network, make friends, and talk with people and ask for input. I think that that's probably one of the biggest things that you can do. I kind of touched on it, but you have no idea how much advice that somebody is willing to give just by asking and getting feedback. Feedback is probably more important than learning most stuff, because you just getting that feedback from other people. That's something for me personally that I didn't have so much of. And so I would say getting feedback from other people, talking and asking questions to the people that might know what they're talking about. That's important.
Awesome. Thank you. I guess we'll just see you on the next one, eh? Well, not you. I'm going to see them. I mean, you might watch this and you might see it, so then you would see
this is my one and only time I'll be.
No, I think this is, well, we could set a future event. Yeah.
All right.
Jake Schaeffer.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Well, that's a wrap on this episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Capture the Reps podcast. If you're a fitness creative and you found this episode helpful, please share this with a fellow creative and keep creating, keep learning, and keep capturing those reps. We'll see you next time.